Now that we understand kind of what's Einstein's discovery and what we can do with it, let's go and take an actual example or an exercise using a custom object, creating the data set, creating the story, analyzing the story, and then later deploying the model as a prediction in the other chapters. So what we're going to do now is we have a custom object in these environments that we are using, and it's called daily sales. This object has records of transactions, let's say at different stores across different cities. We are selling different products, and we're trying to analyze the data to kind of maximize the daily quantity. We're not talking about cost or dollars or profit, etc. Just very simple data set that you're going to see in a bit. And we're going to go over all the flow, how to get the data into a data set. We're using Salesforce object in this case, for example, versus what we just saw as loading as a CSV, etc. And the reason is we're going to redeploy that prediction for the end user in that particular object. So we're going to go over getting the data set, creating the story, and maybe briefly just talking about the model metrics for a brief discussion. Now, there is something called run connect data sync. This is specific to these environments. So if you've never done any exercise with these environments, if you didn't use it for the dashboards or the data sets, what you're going to need to do is, as you go and log into your environment, login.salesforce.com, using the user and the password that you've created, just make sure when you go to the Analytics Studio, and let me increase this a bit, and you go to Analytics Studio, and you're going to have to, as a first time, again, just first time, and specifically for this exercise, if you have not done this before, you want to go to Data Manager and make sure that you've ran the sync one time or connect, right? So this environment has objects in it or some definitions that's bringing data, and we want to make sure that this guy daily sales has run. So you ran and brought the data into this particular connected object. So you have two options. The easiest one is just go to the whole connection right here and just make sure you run it now. So once you run it now, it's going to run and kind of sync all of these objects. And again, this is specific for these environments. Ideally, when you create the data set from scratch, it should be read and brought, when you execute the recipe or the data flow. Let's keep this running in the background. While I want to show you also quickly what is the end goal that we're trying to do, right? So I spoke about that objects. You can search for it, daily sales. You can see that there's a daily sales in this environment right here. That's an object. It's a custom object we have already created. And what we're trying to do here is that, there's a lot of records. So by the way, you might see nothing under recently viewed. Click on the drop down, go to all records, and you will be able to see all these records. All of these are historical, right? So what I see is some daily sales record ID. Let's not care about it, or record number. During month of November in this particular city, the gloves with the promotion display and a discount 15%. That's what the daily quantity was, and so forth for all of this data that we have collected. What we're trying to do is for the end user, let's say a store manager or someone who's handling something within this particular business, maybe they want to run a promotion or a discount, and they are thinking, so let's say maybe for May, let's say for May, and say Boston, for example, right? And we want to say for May, for future May, city Boston. And I want to upsell or sell more from maybe, let's say, hats. And I want to know which ideal promotion maybe I should be using. So if I say, maybe I'm going to say I'm not going to use any promotion for now. And I don't know which discount. So I'm, maybe just let's put randomly 5%. And I don't know daily quantity. So ideally, what I want as an end user is that intelligent experience where it has this card or lightning component, and it tells me, look, if you are the manager for this particular store and you are thinking of selling hats with no promotion and actually didn't take the discount, so discount zero, well, this is the predicted quantity that you're going to be selling or during that day. And the reasons are these top predictions. So there are explanations why. And there are some things you want to do how to improve this. Like, I can already proactively take some action, for example, saying set to 20% or 5% or 15%. So maybe let's say I want to be conservative here and say, okay, I'm going to want 580 quantities more, and I'm just going to, change this discount on the fly to take an action. So this is 5% and save. And now I kind of did my job because I'm saying, for folks, okay, we're going to have a 5% on hats discount, no promotion in May, and this is what we are expecting to sell. So this is the rich experience that we're trying to give, actionable predictions for the end users. That is the ultimate goal. This is what we're going to get after deploying the predictions, after creating the story and going over the model. Of course, this assumes that we've gone over the model and we've tested it, or we know the model metrics are accurate enough, in order to push it to business and take that risk of giving it, or putting it in front of the end users. So to get to this stage, here's what we're going to start with. So first, we have the historical data about this object. We have all of these records. Remember the use case, you build a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In this case, is very, very simple. My goal is, let's say we want to sell more. Again, I'm just focusing on counts or numbers, no dollars here or euros or etc. And my metric is the daily quantity. I want to maximize this daily quantity. And there's nothing wrong with the data. I have this data maybe for a year or two. And that's pretty much, I'm going to say also, I don't need to create some crazy, when do we run a promotion during which week of the month, etc., etc. So we're going to keep it simple. So first, let's get the data first, right? So again, we're going to go to the Analytics Studio, and it opens up in Analytics Studio. I'm going to go and say create. So I'm going to hit create. Let me just make this a little bit bigger, or maybe too much. So we're going to hit create right here, and we're going to create a data set. And I am going to skip creating data set through a data set builder or the data flow. We have, if you've seen the other videos and chapters, we cover that. I'm going to move forward with the way that we're going to be recommending folks to create data sets, and that is through recipes, right? So I can hit here, your data set, it'll take me to a recipe, or directly I can go to the recipes. But let me just click on my data sets here, because I already synced that daily sales object. So it should be, done, and right here should be done, and getting the latest data. So when I clicked on create, when I clicked on create data set from your data set, it opened this tab, Data Manager. I can go to recipes, click on recipes, and I'm going to create a new recipe. Very simple. Later on, you will see also I will kind of reuse this, maybe under a different name, but to again score predictions back in this particular data set. And what I'm trying to do is now first get the data that I'm going to build my story or model on. So select data. And I've already brought it in as a connected object. Remember, it was there. You can manually do it. You create it from scratch, etc. And or I can go down the list, or I can even search for it. But I'm just showing different ways you can get to it. And it should be under connected objects right here, the local. And this is the pure. These are different runs from different academies or previous sessions. This is the source. And I want all fields. I mean, yep, that's fine with me. Maybe ID is too much. ID and daily sales, the record number here is pretty much the same. You'll see the name. Notice that there's API names, there are labels. Anyway, so I brought all the data in, all the fields for now. And ideally, as discussed before, you in a real situation, you may have external data you're bringing from somewhere else, or some multiple objects together. You might be adding transformations here. So you might say, hey, I want to do a flag for a certain duration of a promotion, or I want to flag an item as, I don't know, high sell, high low, whatever it is, you will do the transformations here. And once you're done, you will again register or create the final data set. So in our case, we're not going to do this. It's again pretty straightforward. So I said pull daily sales, and then immediately just go and have an output node, register it as, let's say, daily sales. I'm just going to give it a tag, April 2021. And that will be my data set. In private app, that's fine. I'm kind of developing it right now, testing it. I will hit save, and I can use the same name for the recipe itself. Recipe is just the mechanism creating this data. So again, while this runs, just a quick recap. In the previous video, we had a CSV uploaded data. In this case, I'm going to an object. I'm bringing it as is. I didn't connect or join multiple objects. If you use opportunity use case, you will probably be connecting account and users and maybe activities, etc. So this is again just a simple use case. Now, once this runs, and you can even go back to Data Manager right here, you can check it out. And it will take probably just a few seconds. This should be run and done. Step 2 always, when the data set comes back, is what? Explore it, right? So this data set now is ready for me to go back to Analytics City, for example. I'm going to close these. We don't need these. And I can just search for it. And it's always a good idea to kind of explore it. Just to explore it, I just clicked on it to kind of understand the data. So first of all, I see like it's 30,000 records. Okay, decent amount for this easy use case. I see that there are, let's see the cities. I see a good distribution of all the observations, the rows across the cities. City and store, I will use kind of the same term because there's one store in one city only. And as you can see, again, the distribution of the records or the daily quantities records here are kind of the same across the cities. If I look at it from discounts, I'm using all kind of discounts, okay. If I look at it from items, what I'm selling, again, I'm almost selling everything the same. And I don't know if you're already seeing this, but this is, it's not a surprise, I guess. This is kind of an engineered data set. It's a good data set in the sense of, we're trying to show you something, the data. So in real production or real use cases, you will not see such a clean data set, such a nice distribution of all possible variations, okay? I also have a good amount of counts of observations across months, etc. And as I'm looking at this, I just realized like we are talking about the daily quantity. So I'm curious how that metric is across different months, across different dimensions, etc. So let's add it from here. And we deal with averages. We're not dealing with sum because I just want to see the average per a certain population, per a certain dimension value, etc. So if I look at daily quantities, okay, now I start to see some observations about this data or some trends. I can see that although the number of records, number of transactions, let's say, is the same, across months or almost the same, but still, what we would like to know is that the daily quantity is a little bit different here, and you can see some trends. Now, again, this is just general looking at the data, slicing and dicing. So we can see that in November, the amounts being sold or the daily quantity number is high. For December is again very high. If I go back and check, for example, for discount, and I can see the different discounts, and they almost kind of have a similar average daily quantity. If I go to maybe cities, again, and now I'll see some interesting trends too. I see Boston, I see San Francisco as high daily quantity, average daily quantity versus the rest of the cities, although we are having the same observation or number of rows. And finally, let's take a look at promotions. And again, I see in promotions almost the same. However, this is very interesting. And again, I see like we do a lot of mail in. We have about 30,000 records, and 17,000 of them almost we only send mail in, and they do, or they are associated with the least average daily quantity. So those are interesting insights. And this goes back to the fact that probably if I'm familiar with this business, I've been working with this team maybe for a while, I probably know this just from experience, but maybe not necessarily why or statistically how to prove it, etc. So once we go and create the story, we're gonna go and kind of deep dive and understand why these behaviors, maybe why mail-in doesn't do well, or why, for example, certain cities in certain month do better in November, etc. Or remember the easiest one, right? So when we looked at the city, we saw like Boston and San Francisco do very well. Why? Why do they sell versus like, oh, it is what it is. This is what we know from experience. So again, always exploring the data and the lens is very important. Just to give you that idea, how's the data. If you recall also from the previous example, there are certain things you can detect from exploring the data. You can see if there's a nice distribution to a degree, just what you can explore. If you, especially if you have a variable that's yes or no or true or false, you can immediately see if you have enough rows or observations from both values, including both values. So I'm going to assume that I'm done with my exploration. The data looks good to me. So I'm going to go and create a story. When I hit create a story, again, like before, it's going to ask me what's that outcome variable that I'm trying to maximize or minimize. So I'm trying to maximize daily quantity. This is important in the sense of to guide the model that's going to get created to be accurate, more accurate. In what sense? Well, are you expecting a number that's greater than 0 or not? And this is very important in the sense of this is a model, a mathematical model that's going to predict some values for me. What I'm trying to tell it here, like, do not predict for me negative daily quantity. On a humor side, like there is no return policy on the exchange, let's say. So it doesn't make sense for this model to predict negative numbers. It just not going to help me. So I'm going to tell it from the get-go, like there are no negative numbers in this particular output or outcome variable. So I am expecting a greater than or equal to 0. And I'm going to call the story the same. So I'm going to hit OK, story type. Remember, if you have a large data set, this is the first time you're running that CSV with 200 files, etc., and you don't, first pass, you can run it in size only just to get faster analysis. In this case, it's a very small one. It's just 6 variables, 30,000 rows. So I want everything together. And next one would have been the automated or manual. Do I choose the variables, the input variables? Do I choose promotion and discount and city to include in the story? Or do I let Einstein Discovery just figure out which ones to include? Again, there are 6. They're way less than the max, so I'm just gonna let it select it, and I can always override that.